Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sadia Zafar from HRAI, and I would like to welcome you to today's session on TSSA's modified processes and policy considerations in light of COVID-19. This session is brought to you by John Marshall from TSSA. Please note a copy of the presentation is available in the handout section of the control panel. In addition, please be advised all the lines are muted. You will notice on the control panel of your screen a link to ask questions, and you can ask questions at any time during the webinar. And with that, I would like to welcome you, John, to present.
Thank you, Sadia, and good afternoon, everybody. And certainly, I'd like to welcome you as well to the webinar, but also like to thank HRAI for giving us this opportunity and kind of pulling together and setting up the webinars. Most appreciative of that. So with the COVID-19 epidemic impacting organizations in Ontario in different ways, TSSA has been working with our regulated partners and stakeholders in taking several actions to help alleviate the current constraints, and while still ensuring that the safety is not compromised. So in that regard, offering flexibility and grace periods for prerequisites. Currently, our TSSA's office staff is working from home, but we do remain available to serve and support all of the functions and the stakeholders out there. TSSA did issue an outline of our safety approach and what we're taking with respect to our own operations and interacting with others. We continue to ask customers to contact us if they're facing COVID-related barriers and unsure how to proceed. We're certainly happy to discuss that and help you through that process. Operating as an essential service during COVID does come with responsibilities of operating safely. Regulated partners remain responsible for the safety of their sites and devices and procedures, and in particular must focus on any of the high-risk situations or devices that they might have. From our regard, TSSA will continue to look after the safety mandate and kind of keep things moving as best as we can. So with that introduction, here's what we'd like to look at today. So we had a certainly look at the welcome, but we'll take a look today at terms of engagement, site visits and how we're dealing with those, home inspections, residential and healthcare facilities, examinations, take a look at the COVID-19 guidelines that we've developed and how they'll support the regulated parties, looking at modified inspections and inspection deferrals, licensing issuances and renewals and grace periods. Then we'll look at some specific, programs and specific procedures with respect to propane and fuels, and we'll also touch on the warning tags a little bit. And then finally, we'll end with we'll take a look at the heating contractor audit program, and we'll take a look at the early launch and the things that we've done with that. And then we'll have some time at the end to answer your questions, or certainly take those away if we need to consider those and get back to you with an answer at a future date. So TSSA's modified processes and guidelines in light of the COVID-19 implications. So currently TSSA's head office is closed to the public. We do have a skeleton staff in there that are kind of monitoring any of the incoming correspondence and applications and things of that nature. But if you do need to send any general correspondence to us, please use the website that you see there, the address you see there, customer services at.
Excuse me, John. John,
yes?
sorry to interrupt, but we are having feedback that the audio is not clear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, maybe let me try with the mic a little closer. Maybe can you get a sense? Is that any better?
I'm going to ask.
So I'm working at home, so I don't have best of acoustics, I guess. But
I guess it depends on people's connections. A lot of people are saying that it's working fine, but a few of them are saying there's no audio. So,
Okay, I'll try and keep the mic a little closer, and hopefully that will help out a little bit. So sorry about that, folks. As I said, I'm working remote from HRI, and so I'm not in a studio or anything like that. So we'll hopefully this will come through a little better if I try and hold that mic a little closer. So sorry about that. So as I was saying, the TSSA head office is closed to the public, and if you're needing to send correspondence to us, please use the email address you see there on your screen. If you're submitting applications, please use the inbound email address that's on the upper left of the application. But if the form doesn't list it, an email address, you can send the completed applications and prepayments to the intake at tssa.org, and the intake group will make sure it gets routed to the right department and the right people to deal with that as quickly as possible. For any urgent matters or credit card payments, flexible payment options, any of those kind of discussions, again, please call the number you see on your screen there, and we'll be happy to work through your particular situation. So in terms of engagement, TSSA team members who have direct contact with Ontarians have been instructed to take all precautions to reduce exposure to the virus and to protect not only themselves but also the customer's health as well. So we're using these following safety measures of washing hands often with soap and water, or using alcohol-based hand sanitizers, sneezing and coughing into sleeves so as to not spread the droplets. Avoid touching your eyes and mouth to prevent your own contamination. But our TSA staff have been advised to self-isolate if they are sick or have come into contact with somebody who's sick. If they have traveled outside of Canada within 14 days or come into contact with somebody who is sick or has traveled outside Canada, then they're required to self-isolate. TSSA does expect the same from other organizations. Inspections will be rescheduled if an organization's on-site personnel are symptomatic or not following self-isolation guidelines, but certainly we will work with whoever to help expedite and get things done that need to be done. For site visits, before visiting any site, TSSA will call ahead to discuss the current COVID-19 situation with the site owner or the manager, and together they'll determine the level of risk. But they certainly will be inquiring about policies and procedures or guidelines or protocols that are in place, and ask the following questions about people they will be meeting with. So, for example, has anyone been exposed to the COVID-19? Has anyone recently shown symptoms similar to that of COVID-19? Has anyone had close contact with anybody who's been exposed or recently shown symptoms similar to that of COVID-19? Has anyone at the site traveled outside Canada within the last 14 days or had close contact with anyone who has traveled outside the country in the past 14 days? These questions get asked of everyone where we're going to be attending the site if necessary. If the answer is yes to any of the questions, the TSSA inspector will contact their supervisor and we'll try and determine what's the best approach for this particular customer. So, make arrangements for different personnel on site. Can we use some alternate form method of reaching the compliance or doing the review of the inspection, such as the use of technologies? But in any case, we're more than happy to work with everybody to try and resolve that and find the best solution for everybody. If the answer is no to all of the questions, the inspector will advise the site representative that he or she will only enter the site if social distancing of at least 2 meters between persons can be maintained at all times. For home inspections, TSSA is temporarily suspending non-emergency and home visits. Again, we will look for alternate ways to confirm compliance, and and deal with any of the safety issues that need to be taken care of. If an inspector must enter a home for an emergency, then he or she will practice the social distancing requirements. And in emergency cases, the inspectors may accept pictures, videos, live or recorded, or other evidence in lieu of physically being present during the inspection. But, you know, the inspectors will be in touch, and they'll, between us, we'll work out what's the best options to deal with any of the situations that need to be looked at. But certainly, please have conversation with either the supervisors or the local inspector if you're involved in these kinds of situations. For the residential and healthcare facilities, TSSA inspectors will not enter any occupied areas of the following facilities. However, we will be available to these customers should they require our services. So the occupied areas of long-term care homes and senior residences, hospitals, retirement homes, personal dwellings, and this would include houses, apartments, and condos, and then community housing for any for non-critical routine inspections. For examinations, exams at TSSA's head office and the Ministry of Labor Training and Skills Development field offices have been canceled for the foreseeable future. We know we're starting to have a bit of a backlog and people waiting for exams and assessments and things, but we will start to look at a replan very shortly, but for now, there's no exams taking place. With respect to the guidelines, TSSA is making several considerations to help alleviate the COVID-19 epidemic impact on its customers whilst ensuring that safety is not compromised. And again, operating essential services during the COVID-19 does come with responsibility of operating safely, so that we all need to maintain and keep up our role and part in operating the safety net in Ontario. So let's take a look at the support of some of the regulated parties who can be facing difficulties. So invoices will continue to be sent on a regular basis. However, if a business operations are closed or significantly reduced, customers should contact TSSA and we can discuss any options with you in regards to your specific circumstances. Modified inspections and inspection deferrals. Inspections will be prioritized based on the level of public safety risk and any of the COVID-19 implications. If a TSSA inspector is denied entry to the site, the inspector will first call their supervisor, and between them and the client will determine a subsequent action or the best course of action to take, you know, based on the COVID-19 implications and level of public safety risk and any other protocols that our clients or customers may have in place. Based on the circumstances, a grace period may be provided to defer the inspection for up to 120 days after the state of emergency in Ontario has been lifted. Licensing, issuance, license issues and renewals and grace periods. TSSA customers are required by law to maintain their licenses in good standing. However, we will take a look at specific situations, but licensing independent from inspection, TSSA continues to require organizations to renew their licenses before expiry with flexible payment and collection terms if they're requested, again, based on your specific circumstances. Authorizations dependent on inspection. So TSSA, again, will continue to require organizations and certificate holders to renew their authorizations before expiry with flexible payment and collection terms if requested. However, TSSA will renew an authorization even in the cases where there's a mandatory pre-license inspection or other prerequisite inspection or training prerequisites where that inspection can't be performed if there is a valid reason. So if requested, TSSA will defer the inspection requirement for up to 120 days after the state of emergency or the social distancing requirements have been lifted. So taking a look at some of the program-specific procedures that we have in place for propane, again, TSSA expects the licenses to be renewed. If requested, TSSA will offer the opportunity to extend the renewal timeframes before shutting down a device or a plant. So if you're in difficulty and need us to help out with resolving issues, let us know, and we'll try and work something out rather than just send the plant or the device to shut down. TSSA will offer the propane distributors a grace period of 120 days to complete their 10-year inspections required by Section 18 of Ontario Reg 211. Recognizing that access to some locations like private dwellings and long-term care homes may be difficult, regulated parties must assess the ability to complete these inspections based on their and their customers' protocols, and then take a look at the best options that are available. Propane distributors may continue to supply during this grace period. TSSA continues to require, as I said, their license to be renewed. If requested, TSSA may offer licensees a 120-day grace period to submit a new or revised risk and safety management plan for new owners, or where site changes necessitate a new RSMP. That's a risk and safety management plan. Record of training or ROT holders, these are individuals, and the individual teachers will be given a grace period of 120 days to renew their ROT if online training is not available as an option. ROT training providers, so these are the companies, must renew their TSSA accreditation before its expiry and pay any of the associated fees unless other arrangements are made with TSSA. Looking at fuel oil, TSSA will offer fuel oil distributors who supply fuel to home systems and are unable to complete their comprehensive inspections as required by Section 7. A grace period of 120 days will be provided to complete those inspections. Further inspections may be considered as required or circumstances change. And so, although they're now talking about perhaps May 12th as being the lift of the state of emergency and or social distancing, we really don't know what the the reopening of the economy in the province will mean in terms of whether it's happens in steps or everything comes fully open. But we will provide the flexibility if we have to deal with those situations as they arise. TSSA expects the petroleum mechanic certificates to renew prior to expiry. If the recertification is conditional on continuing education being fulfilled, mechanics must renew their certificates as required. Mechanics will be given the 120-day grace period from the date that the social distancing requirements cease or the state of emergency is lifted to fulfill that requirement and submit their continuing education requirements. Mechanics may continue to work during the 120-day grace period as long as their certificate has been renewed. With respect to warning tags, these are for the non-immediate tags under regulations 211, 12, 13, and 17, where non-immediate warning tags can be granted for a period of up to 90 days for deficiencies deemed to be non-immediate. So in the past, we've generally followed, if the fuel distributor had guidelines in terms of time to comply, these were applied and used in the system. However, under the current circumstances with access to a lot of places being restricted, we're certainly saying that you can provide a non-compliance warning tag up to 90 days. If there are extensions beyond this requirement, they'll be granted on a case-by-case basis. And so I have been monitoring the warning tags through my office and granting those restrictions or those extensions as required, and really taking a look to satisfy ourselves to the level of safety and risk involved before we consider that. So we've been fairly flexible on the time frames to allow people to get these repairs completed. So taking a look at the fuels heating contractor audit program and our early launch, some of you may already have been part of this. Certainly some of you will recall that Sandra Cook provided a webinar on the contractor audit program back in February, and you can see there's a link there in this presentation if you'd like to go back and review that, and for any of the greater details that you'd like. So as an administrative authority, TSSA is an essential business, as are probably everybody listening on this call, and we are complying with the government's order regarding COVID-19. The revised audit program, however, is a good example of how inspections and audits can continue in compliance with the Ontario COVID-19 directive at low risk to the public, the contractors, and our inspectors. And so, you know, we've been conducting this now for a couple of weeks and had very positive response and from the contractor community on how this is working. And really, when we call this early launch, is because we really had intended to move the program in this direction in the future, as Sandra had attended a lot of the chapter meetings and brought you up to date on that. But this just seemed like an ideal opportunity to bring this forward to kind of keep things moving along as best we could. So that was the reason that we moved this up quite a bit to an early launch. Some of the details, the revised contractor program is effective immediately. The audit program is an interactive process whereby contractors explain their operations, and TSSA explains the regulatory, education, and compliance requirements, and then TSSA will also go over the contractor's inspection history. Now, most of you know that the past program largely focused on contractors setting up site visits for TSSA inspectors. Basically not a viable option during this pandemic, but also we know that in conversation with HRAI and many of the members that it certainly was a source of great difficulty in trying to get these site visits set up. So we see this as a very viable way to kind of keep the program moving and perhaps be even more valuable. So the program itself focused on the 7 contractor regulatory responsibilities. The revised audit parameters are outlined in an advisory entitled Revision to TSA's Fuel Heating Contractor Audit Program. Again, there's a link there that will take you to the revised program and talks about or highlights the 7 requirements in this new program. TSSA inspectors are performing virtual audits right now via Skype or telephone, and where they'll explain the 7 requirements outlined in the advisory, and where regulated parties agree that an on-site audit is safe and practical, TSSA will continue to supply that service as well. So that kind of concludes the how TSSA is addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the final episode in season 1 of the Know Your Gas Code webinar series. Please continue to share your questions and comments at Fuels Technical Service at TSSA, and please tune in when we start a new season, hopefully in the fall of 2020. And when we've got this all behind us and we're all on the road to recovery and all have our recovery plans in place and everybody's back to full work. So thank you very much, everybody, for participating, and please stay safe out there. And I hope you and your families are all well through this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That was informative. I would like to apologize for the technical glitches at the start of the webinar. I hope you all found this informative. We don't have any questions at the moment from the audience. So if you have any questions, please email John at his email address that's provided. And your feedback is very important to us. So please fill the survey after the webinar. And with that, have a good day, everyone. And thank you once again, John.
Thank you.